Hello, I'm Jim Luckman.
I'm Margie Hageney, and we co-facilitate the Transformational Leadership Workshop with LEI.
What we'll do is take you on a very brief overview of some of the thinking and the tools that we have inside the course. One of the things that we'd like to take you through right now is a way and a method for doing deep reflection in terms of the activities you have going on so that you can learn how to get better at what you do. There are 4 steps. The first step is to take a look at the outcome of something that happened. Let's say you created an experiment and you got some outcome from the experiment. You want to make sure that you have an assessment of exactly what that outcome was versus what it should have been, or the gap associated with it. The second step is to ask yourself, what actions did I take to get to this outcome? And deeply understand the connection between the actions and the outcome. Then the third step is ask yourself, what was I thinking which led me to the actions that I took, which led to the outcome? And the final and probably more difficult step is digging deep into yourself and saying, what assumptions did I have that led me to the actions and the outcome we got? We use this deep reflection individually, and we use it in groups to create an assessment of how quickly and fast we're learning inside our organization. Any comments?
We walk through a series of teachings and exercises to help people start to reflect for themselves about their own personal leadership habits and the way they show up in service to creating an organization filled with problem solvers. And we'd like to just dig into one of the many teachings that we offer to people for their consideration, for their own personal planning when they go back and try to apply some of these teachings and methods on a problem in their own workplace.
So we have observed these are typical habits that people have that they consciously need to work at trying to break in order to be able to create good, effective learning organizations. First one is the habit of imposing our own solutions on the organization. For a leader to say, this is the solution I want, everybody needs to do it that way, usually leads to a lot of inefficiencies and confusion.
When a leader has been in an organization for long enough, often he or she will see something, a problematic condition that looks familiar and that they believe they've seen in the past. So they will jump to conclusions about what the problem is and what the solution is to solve it. And often that comes from the imposition of my thinking rather than grasping the situation, supporting other people with grasping the actual current condition as it stands today.
A second habit is built into each of us individually, and in the context of working inside an organization in a social situation, when you're into discussions with others, sometimes things get a little heated, sometimes things get a little tense, and we individually will have a tendency to move either towards silence or get real quiet and say things like to ourselves, well, if that's the way they want it to go, let them go. Or move to the part of violence where we get very vocal, very active, and sometimes very loud. So just recognizing that we have tendencies to swing either way, what you really want to do is try to keep the discussion in the middle so you can have a rational discussion.
We're wired to protect ourselves and look out for our interests and our self-preservation. It comes back from, it's just the way humans are wired. So bringing to a conscious level how I'm behaving in the circumstance of silence or violence is another important thing to reflect on as a leadership habit.
The third habit is a passion for data. We've observed sometimes leaders, when they get information and or data that it doesn't necessarily connect with what they want to do, they'll say, well, go get me more data. And trying to prevent that from happening, what that does is it causes a lot of confusion a lot of extra work and redundancy in the organization. So just being aware that when you ask for data, there better be a specific problem you're trying to fix, and that the data supports you in terms of fixing that problem.
We often like to believe that the answer is in the data, as opposed to other ways to consider for grasping the situation. And one way we offer to people to consider is to be able to answer the questions, what do you know? How do you know it? What do you need to know? And how can you learn it? How can you find it out? Again, this goes back to the uncovering of the assumptions, unquestioned assumptions that we have. How do we know what we really think we know?
The fourth one is imposing too much variation and overburdening on the organization. I'll just pick out the piece of overburdening. Some leaders believe that the more work I give my people, the more work we get done. And it turns out that that doesn't always work that way. There should be some time and space available for people to think and to focus and to work on the more critical things rather than just do a lot of work. So we do see in organizations a lot of leaders overburdening their organization as a result of thinking that the more work I give them, the more work they get done.
That said, it can also happen in unintentional ways. We can have clarity about what it is we want to accomplish in a given year or a given quarter. And as leaders, we lose sight of the little bits that we've increasingly assigned people. And we cause fatigue, we cause stress, and we don't accomplish even the basics that we had intention for accomplishing at the beginning of the year. So then we wonder, why didn't we deliver what we had intention for delivering? It takes us off track from our plan versus actual.
And the last one is driving Band-Aid solutions by making statements like, well, we just don't have time to worry about getting to root cause. We don't have time to dig into that. Just give me the answer and give it to me now. And what that does is it creates throwing Band-Aids on top of solutions, or workarounds is another way of saying it, and it creates complexity in the organization and actually makes things worse.
So if leaders have a responsibility for creating capacity, both capacity to deliver the products and services and capacity for giving people the opportunity to develop themselves as problem solvers, how do we model that as leaders and actually start with ourselves and make the time for the things that are important? Model the behaviors that we want to see, build the time into my workday to do that, and to also pay attention to the right things, because employees model what they observe in their leaders.
So this is one real quick peek at a part of transformational leadership. The real intention of the 2.5-day workshop is to allow the people who come to it to leave with a specific plan on how to work on problems in their organization and, in fact, focus on their behaviors and themselves in terms of the leadership capability of allowing their organization to solve those problems.
Come learn with us.
Thank you.